Okay, so let's just minimize this. So for lowest handicap, what we want to do is we want to assume the first one is the lowest, and then go through each following record and compare that value to the lowest one. If we find one that is lower, we want to keep that value and carry on. Okay. So that means we want to keep the lowest handicap. So let's create a variable, let's call it low. This will be an integer because our handicaps are integers. We want to start with the first one being the lowest one. So that means we want to be at the first record. And this, we're working with table player, which is our ADO table 1. So our ADO table 1, we want to just go to the first record. Now we're at the first record. Then we can say the lowest value should now get a value from ADO table 1. Which field? The handicap field. Handicap. So this will take me to the first record, and then this will take the handicap value from the first record and give it to low. Now we've got our initialization for low. So now we can start looking at all the rest. So that means we want to loop through this. So for loop, let's use our repeat loop. So we want to repeat until we add our ADO table 1's end of file. We did initialize. We want to loop until there. And remember, with our while and repeat, there's always 3 pieces. You have to initialize, then we can use it as a condition, and then the last thing, just before the end, we have to go to the next record. There's our 3 pieces for our loop. Alright, so we've got our 3 pieces. Now what do we want to do? We want to see if the following handicap is less than the lowest one. So if our ADO table 1's value inside handicap is less than the lowest value, then the lowest value must become our ADO table 1, the handicap field. So now we go to the first record, we assume the first one is the lowest. Then we loop through all of them, every time going to the next record and comparing that handicap with low. If the handicap is less than low, we put that handicap into low. And that meant whenever the loop is done, we can just display maybe a nice message. Change our integer to a string of low. Okay, so our next button, we want to do the average handicap. So now if I want the average handicap, that basically means we need to get the sum of the handicaps and divide that by the amount of records or the amount of numbers we added together. Alright, so we need 2 things. Main thing is the total, so let's just say total and integer. But what we also want to know, we want to know how many, so let's call it count. So we need a counter to say how many records, and we need the total for the total amount. So when we start, we have to initialize our variable. So our count, our total will be 0. Because we didn't add anything yet, so that will be 0. With your count, you can also start it with 0, and we can increment as we count, that would work fine. But what we've also got is we've got an ADO table 1 dot record count. This thing will actually tell you how many records are there in this table. So that will do it for us automatically. So then we're happy with that. But for the total, unfortunately, we have to go do it. So we have to take each number and add it to the total. Take the next number, add it to the total. Take the next one, add it to the total, and it must become the new total. Take the 8, add it to that total, and that must become the new total, and so forth. So that means we have to go through each record. Once you go through each record, that means we need our loop. That means we need our 3 pieces. So our ADO table 1 needs to start at the first record. Then we can repeat until our ADO table 1 is at the end of the file. And before we go to that piece, right at the end of the inside of our loop, our ADO table 1, we have to go to the next record. Alright, so remember your 3 pieces. First, you can use it as a condition, but then you have to go to the next one. Alright, now what we want to do, we don't need a if, because remember, we just want to add all of them. We don't need to check anything. The only thing we want to do is our total must just become whatever the total was, but we want to add our ADO table 1, which field? The handicap field. That's literally all we need to do. Our total needs to start at 0. We go to the first record, take his handicap, add it to total, and that must become the new total. Then we go next record. Take his handicap, add it to total, and that must become the new total. And we carry on throughout this thing. So when we're done, we can do our show message. If we wanted to, we could have created this variable. You could have done it in the display immediately, but just because let's do this. So we'll take our total and divide it by our count, and then we can show message average handicap. And remember now, average, because we use divide, it's a double. That means we have to float to string our average, and that's how we'll do our average.
Actually, I have a question.